Hi, it's Grandmama Doris. This little story is called Making the Best of Trouble. David said to himself, I shall be killed some day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than to escape into the land of the Philistines. Then Saul will give up hope and search no more for me in the land of Israel. And so I will escape from him. David therefore with 600 of his men who were with him went over to Achish. He was the king of Gath, and David and his men lived with Achish at Gath, each with his own family. When Saul was told that David had fled to Gath, he gave up looking for him. David said to Achish, If now you will grant me a favor, give me a place in the towns of the open country, that I may live there. For why should your servant live in the royal city with you? So Achish gave him Ziklag, and David lived in the open country of the Philistines for 1 year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and made a raid upon the Geshurites, and they also raided the Girzites, and they raided the Amalekites. Of these tribes lived in the land which extends from Telem and the land of Egypt. And often as David made a raid on the land, he did not leave alive a man or a woman, but taking the sheep, the oxen, the donkeys, and the camels, and the clothing, he returned and went to Achish. Then when Achish said, Where have you made a raid today? David would answer him, Against the south country of Judea, or against the south country of the Jeremites, or against the south country of the Kenites. And Achish trusted David, thinking he has made his people Israel hate him. Therefore he will be my servant forever, he thought. Now in those days the Philistines gathered their forces to make war against Israel. And Achish said to David, You and your men shall surely go with me in the army. And David replied, You shall then know that your servant can do. Achish said to David, In that case, I will make you the captain of my bodyguard from this time on. Then the Philistines gathered all their forces at Ephek, and the Israelites camped at the fountain in Jezreel. When the rulers of the Philistines were marching past by hundreds and by thousands, and David and his men were marching in the rear with Achish, the commanders of the Philistines said, Why are those Hebrews doing here? Achish said to them, Is this not David, the servant of Saul, the ruler of Israel, who has been with me these 2 years? I have found no fault in him from the time that he came to me unto the present. But the commanders of the Philistines were displeased, and they said to him, Send the men back to the place where you had stationed him. Do not let him go down with us into battle, lest we have a foe in the camp. For how could this fellow be better win back the favor of his master than the heads of these men? Is not of the David of whom they sang to one another in the dances? Saul has slain his thousands, and David has slain his 10,000s. Then Achish called to David and said to him, As surely as God lives, you are upright, and your conduct towards me, both in and out of camp, has been satisfactory. For I have found nothing wrong in you from the time that you have came to me until the present, but you are not trusted by the other rulers. Go back home, therefore in peace, that you may do nothing to displease the rulers of the Philistines. And David said to Achish, But what have I done? What have you found in your servant from the day that I entered your service, that I may not go out and fight with you, the enemies of my lord the king? And Achish answered him, I know that you are as faithful to me as any angel of God. But the commanders of the Philistines have said, He shall not go into battle with us. Therefore, you and those who came with you are to rise early in the morning and go to the place where I have stationed you. Do not plan any evil, for I trust in you. But rise early in the morning, and as soon as it is light, you depart. So David and his men arose early in the morning, and they returned to the Philistine land. But the Philistines went up to Jezreel. On the third day, when David and his men returned to Ziklag, the Amalekites had made a raid on the south country and on Ziklag, and had attacked Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had also carried away captive all who were in it, including the women and the children. They had not killed any, but they had carried them away with them. Then David and the people who were with him, they wept out loud until they were no longer able to weep. David was in great trouble, for the people spoke of stoning him, because they all felt bitter, having lost their sons, their daughters. But David took courage, for he trusted in God, his God. So David and his 600 followers went on to Brook Besor, where those who were tried to cross the brook stayed behind. They found there an Egyptian in an open field, and brought him to David and gave him food to eat, and they gave him water to drink. Then David said to him, To whom do you belong, and where do you come from? He replied, I am an Egyptian lad, and an Amalekite servant, and my master left me behind, because 3 days ago I felt sick. We marched into the south country of the Cherethites, and into those which belong to Judea, and into the south country of Caleb, and Ziklag we destroyed by fire. And David said to him, Will you guide me to this robber band? And the man replied to him, Swear to me by your God that you will neither kill me nor turn me over to my master, and I will guide you to this band. When he had brought him down, the Amalekites were scattered over the land, eating and drinking and dancing, because all the great spoil that they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judea. David fought against them from twilight to the evening, on until the next day. And only 400 men who were mounted on their camels were able to escape. So David took from the Amalekites all they had carried away, and rescued his 2 wives. Nothing at all was missing. Then he took all the flocks that he had, herds and doves, and he drove all the animals before the people. And they said, This is David's spoil. When David came to the 200 men who had been so faint that they could not follow him, all the wicked, mean followers who went with him said, Because these men did not go with us, let us not give them any of the spoil that we have taken, except that each man may take his wife and his children, and they may depart. But David answered him, My brothers, you shall not do so with that which God has given to us. After he has saved our lives and given this robber band that attacked us into our power, those who stay with the baggage shall have an equal share with those who fight. So from this day to the present, he made this the law and the rule over Israel. When David came to Ziklag, he sent some of the spoil to the leaders of Judea and to his relatives, saying, See a present for you from the spoil of the enemies of God. Thank you so much.